I'm Jake Short. This is the 12 Ronnies podcast, and today we are joined by Colin Smith from Dexterity Solutions and Geoff Hudson-Searle from IBEM. Listening, we have seen around the world that we've had this glory of social media that it means that everybody is now just listening to or sharing opinions with people who agree with them. So there's not a great deal of listening going on, is there, Colin?
Very much so. I think the bigger challenge is that most people believe that they are better than average listeners, when in fact we're actually very good at hearing. And when I say that to people, I get a look of, but isn't hearing and listening the same thing? And so I ask them the question, when was the last time you felt really heard? And that really throws them. And it's then I'm able to explain the difference. And essentially the difference is we hear from, we listen to. And so hearing is passive. We don't have to do anything. So if I'm in a busy restaurant with you and Geoff and we're talking away and someone calls your name out, you'll turn around and say, somebody called my name out. I wouldn't have noticed. And it's also why we don't sleep particularly well in new beds because of all the other noises. So it's there to keep us safe, and it happens all the time. Listening, on the other hand, is something that we have to intend to do. I have to actively intend to listen to you. And that's really the key difference, and why a lot of people think they're good listeners, but in fact, they're just good hearers.
Geoff, doesn't it mean that you actually should spend the time trying to say something meaningful and purposeful?
What were we doing before? We saw historically the fax machine, we saw historically emails, we saw the shortened version of emails, we've seen collaboration tools, and we've seen sending messages on Slack, and everybody in the world expects a quality level of delivery in business, but actually they're not listening to their employees, they're not interacting with their employees, they're not getting to even be empathetic or even understand their employees.
Colin, would you agree that quite a lot of this listening and hearing that you're talking about actually also works a lot better if you're sat in front of somebody and you can see them? Obviously, with the changing circumstances forced by the lockdown in most countries in the world, now we're conducting this interview, but we're separated by hundreds, it could be thousands of miles. How does that affect this ability to hear and listen?
If all we're doing is hearing, we're just hearing the words. We're not hearing all of the other aspects of the person that we're engaging with. Sometimes we can do coaching without the video because it causes us to listen more. Because I'm getting some clues and cues from you and from Geoff about how you're responding and reacting to what I'm saying. But what I'm not getting is the whole picture. So it is a bit condensed, and we have to work harder to listen. But going back to one of the things I said right at the beginning, we don't get trained in how to listen. And yet listening is one of the most important things of the 4 communication mediums, such as reading, writing, and speaking. Hundreds of courses on speaking and presentation skills. But how many courses have you been on or know of that are about listening?
How do we get to that point where we can actually find a platform where people can listen and can hear each other?
Without trust, we don't have anything, whether that's remote working, whether that's in politics, whether it's how we communicate on digital media and digital platforms. If you don't have transparency, authenticity, and you're not empathetic to the people, how do you expect to get a behavior outcome which is defined, which is going to actually bring people and organizations together and unity together? But the fundamental factor around anything, whether it's political, business, or at home, it's trust.
Colin, trust.
So if you and I are sat opposite each other, and on the table is a number 6, it looks like a 6 to me. It looks like a 9 to you. And I tell you it's a 6, and you go, no, it's a 9. No, it's a 6, it's a 9. I go, Jake, but you're an intelligent man. Can't you see it's a 6? But if I decide to listen first and be prepared to have my mind changed. So I trust you're going to be the same for me. I can come around to your side and say, help me understand why you see it as a 9. I go, oh my goodness, I see it as a 9 now. But you come around to my side and you see it as a 6. And therefore, we've got a much better basis on which to take things further and discuss it further. But we start then, and the point Geoff makes about trust is really important. It starts with that connection. And if we don't have that connection, which starts with listening, we're not going to be able to trust each other.
COVID-19, I know we're fed up in the tooth of discussing it, but it's a brilliant time to actually reach out to our people, government to reach out to, society, for leadership to reach out to their employees, for mum and dad and families to reach out to their children and their grandchildren, to solidify listening, to solidify empathetic reasons and care and attention and support. Then you're going to build relationship and build the glue that I talked around the trust issue, and hopefully purpose.
Tell me about how listening and hearing is going to assist companies going into the next few months, and how they can use it to help them solidify their position and prosper.
This is such an important topic for this time as we come out of lockdown and come back to work, come back to school, rebuilding those relationships. People are fragile, and the more we can check in with them. So instead of asking, how are your numbers doing? We could ask them, how are you doing? Would be really helpful. If we were to, everyone's not going to go back to work. We're not going to stop having some of these Zoom conversations, but how about having conversations which is just a check-in with each other? So trying to mimic, in a slightly contrived way, the coffee breaks and the lunch breaks by having 10 minutes with each other and talking about stuff that isn't work related, checking in to see how each of us is doing and getting on with this all. But if we don't trust our manager, if we don't trust our partner, if we don't trust our friends, then we're not going to be able to open up and share what's really going on. So if I don't trust you and Geoff, I won't tell you about what's happening at home or what's happening to me medically, but there is stuff going on. And so the more that we are able to trust each other, the more we're able, and starts with listening, is we create a safer environment to be in. And I was in a call recently where there was 4 of us in the breakout room, and the 3 other people had all left their previous jobs because their boss didn't listen to them.
There's news now that large corporations have had a really good reaction from customers where they're talking to somebody over a Zoom call and a cat jumps on their lap. So actually humanising the corporation. Do you think that's part of the listening and hearing and understanding, Geoff?
We are missing the corridor chats, the coffee chats, the chats around the photocopier, having a coffee, having a sporadic lunch, because you can. And that's where a lot of the background discussions, as a non-executive director as well, it's the conversations that need to happen outside of the boardroom or outside of the Zoom call that make things work. And I'm back to, they're not going to work if you haven't got trust in place. Trust manages things like the increased value of a situation, accelerated growth, enhanced innovation, improved collaboration, stronger partnering, better execution. But the big one is heightened commitment and loyalty within the organization. Unless there's an EI component within leadership in the next 10 years, you're out of a job. No big surprise, because this era now that we have means that if you are working from home, we've got to increase your trust. Actually, we've got to communicate more. We've got to start listening. We've got to start understanding.
We're coming up to the end here. Colin, what's your last thoughts? What would you like somebody to take away from you from this conversation today?
So the message I leave is, as I say, listen first, listen always, always, because people are dying to be heard, literally and figuratively.
Geoff, last word.
Leadership, including boards of directors, need to step up with increased levels of communication and that increased voice if you're looking at increased levels of growth and development with people.
Excellent one to end on. Colin, where do people find you if they'd like some help with listening?
So my website is the best, which is www.dexteritysolutions.co.uk. And that's DEXTERITY solutions.co.uk.
And Geoff, once again, your website, please.
www.ib-em.com or freedomafterthesharks.com, which will also have my latest book, Purposeful Discussions, detailed within it.
Colin and Geoff, thank you so much for your time.